Welcome live to the Let's Get Louder LMF's podcast. I am Loud Miami fan, Loud Marlins fan, Chase Blake, whatever you want to call me, but follow me at Loud Miami fan. And on this episode, we are getting louder with the GOAT, Josh Billy, longtime, diehard, original Marlins fan, who's also formerly of ESPN Radio. Josh, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem. You can also find me on JBillGoat on X, formerly of Twitter. Glad to be here.
Yep, and that's again at JBillyGoat. So, it's funny because when I first asked you on a few weeks ago, we were going to record kind of like what I did a little bit with Eli Sussman, where we didn't discuss the Marlins, more discussed his life into baseball and his FOF. In this case, I want to hear from you a little bit before we get into what's happening with the Marlins, this dumpster fire of a team that they're showing that they're putting out on the field with the trades and whatnot. But before I start that, let's ask you the best question. How did you become a Marlins fan?
Well, I'm originally from New York, so I remember going to a lot of Mets and Yankees games originally, and then moved down here when I was a kid, and I just been with the Marlins since day one. I remember the draft. I remember the first game they ever played. I pretended I was sick and stayed home from school. I totally remember those Charlie Huff balls that were called strikes. Thank you, ump. So I've been with the Marlins since, like I said, since the draft, when I remember drafting this guy Conine, saying, who is this guy? But then he turned into Conine the Barbarian, one of our classic Marlins.
Yeah, I remember Jeff Conine as a kid, a little bit different when we were in teen years, or I was in teen years when he came back. But as a kid, he was larger than life. Being your experience as an early Marlin fan, did you find the players larger than life from game one?
Well, I'll tell you what's funny. You say that is actually Jeff Conine was the first autograph ball I ever got. So, it was, that's why it was special. And yeah, he seemed larger than life. And then for him just to kind of come out and just have the success that he had. And then just kind of, he's Mr. Marlin, it was great that, he was able to come back. Especially it was great that he was able to be part of the winning part too.
You just need him or the Marlins to bring his son up now, Griffin, who's had a good time down in our minors, hitting bomb after bomb. The Marlins have never won a World Series without a Conine, so why not, right? It should happen.
Well, he'll be ready. Not to jump ahead, but he'll be ready when we're ready to win, right?
Hopefully, and he'll probably be traded too, but get to that a little later. Now, you came from New York, as many have. Were you introduced to Yankees or Mets baseball before the Marlins?
Yeah, so that's my earliest memories is my dad taking us to Shea or taking us to the Yankees Stadium. A lot of memories, honestly, that I all involve, like I tell my kids, like every time I went to a Mets game, there was always fighting in the stands. Like I do remember the drunk fans, unfortunately, as a piece, but that was just part of Shea.
And of course, the Marlins closed Shea Stadium with a victory over the Mets, which was great before they left. Now, you mentioned your father bringing you to Yankee Stadium. What's your earliest or greatest memory, or both, of a baseball experience?
I will say I'll say my greatest because I think it even trumps my earliest. I think my greatest baseball experience to this day is the 2003 playoffs. Being in the stands when you're in the football stadium and there's 70,000 people waving those towels. I was there when Pudge hit that ball to right field, and I think Juan Pierre scored the game-winning run in the NLCS, and went crazy. Unfortunately, I think I cost myself a chance to be on the news because I remember I'm running up and down the aisles, and the news grabs me, and the first thing I do is just start cursing, like "Holy shit!" And so I was like, I guess I missed my spot there, but it was amazing. The atmosphere when you have that many people, waving those towels and just being in unison for like, it was an extra innings win. It was just amazing. So I would say I'm still waiting to top that at any sports experience that I've been to since.
I remember the Seabass home run, and I think it was the game 4, which was the second home game in the World Series. That was the extra inning game, and that was just an emotional roller coaster. That game, coming back, you had Braden Looper, of course, back in '03.
Yeah.
He was the modern day Robertson, if you want to go into last year, or the modern day Puck at earlier last year. Now we can't even get in a save position, so I can't even mention this year. But yeah, there's some good World Series experiences from '03. I'm right there with you. And it's funny how you and I reconnected. I'll tell a little story here.
Amazing, really amazing, actually.
Yeah, I'll
With
let you.
with 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 the amount of Marlins fans on the planet, right? It is kind of amazing.
Right. Um, what I'm speaking of, and Josh could get more into it for the listener, is I used to go to games. I've been a fan as well for 31 seasons now. And I used to go to games, and I was always loud. I was the obnoxious drunk, I want to say, in my 20s in right field, section 29 or 28. It was the right field foul pole area. We would start the wave. It was just a good overall time and different baseball experience than we get now because there's no tailgating and beers are too expensive. But I'll let Josh kind of tell you of how he knew who I was. So go from there.
Yeah, so I just got onto X or Twitter, semi recently, just a couple of years ago, and that's when I first kind of reconnected with Chase. But it was amazing because found this guy on Twitter, and I was like, Chase, I'm like, and you look kind of like this guy. So I asked him, I said, hey, were you this fan? Me and my wife went to a game maybe 15 years ago or something. Were you this fan out in right field, just being crazy? There was this guy, Chaser. I thought his jersey said Chaser, and he was just getting the crowd all pumped up. He was the one who got everybody doing the wave, just made it an experience out there. And then you sent me back a picture of the jersey, and I'm like, holy cow. Like finding, like reconnecting after, and I didn't even meet you then, but
No.
just me remembering one fan in the stands from a game or games that long ago when I can't even remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. So it's just amazing, that type of stuff.
That,
And then it was just funny that it was you. And so
I,
I could say I can vouch for it. You are a true OG Loud Marlins fan.
that I am. And it's funny because I thought you were joking when you asked me it. I'm like, oh, he must have looked through my picture and he's about to make fun of me or something. But when you were serious, I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
Yes.
Always hoped I made an impact on someone at the game. And yes, it's
It
you.
is just kind of, yeah, it's crazy. It is.
All about the experience. I mean, we all love baseball, and growing up in baseball, as you started in New York, came down to Miami or South Florida, became a Marlins fan from day one, or even the pre-draft before they were an actual team. You now have children. Obviously, we're not going to state their names for privacy and whatnot, but you now have children. How's the experience molded into dad mode as baseball experience now?
It's been interesting, and being a Marlins fan, I was always thinking it's going to be tough to get them into this because kind of a perennial loser. And then the Marlins had a little bit of success. Remember the what is it, the pandemic season or whatnot, where they kind of snuck in there, and then last year especially, just getting my son, and then surprisingly even my daughter, and watching more and more Marlins games. My son really learned a lot about baseball. He's in Little League, so it really taught him a lot about the game, where to go, what to do. So I made them watch a lot of Marlins baseball is on in my house. So if they want to watch TV, that's what they're gonna be watching, right? So it was and then the Marlins to kind of come out of nowhere, and then as you know, and a lot of people said it's not sustainable, but the magical 1-run wins last year just really kind of hooked the kids. And I mean, maybe I shouldn't have done this, but there was a few times Marlins were down big, and the kids would kind of make bets with me. Hey, if they come back and win this, you will go get ice cream tomorrow. And I was like, yeah, sure. They never. And then we had some amazing ninth inning, eighth inning rallies. Damn it! So the kids got some ice creams and things sometimes, but you know what? It kept them more interested too. And that season making the playoffs, and I think just was a real special time. It really was a bonding experience. And I'll tell you this. My daughter came out of nowhere and said, I want to try softball out of nowhere. And I think it was really mainly from watching a lot of baseball and getting into it. So we did that, and she's going to do it again. So, the Marlins might have made another ball player. My son is a little ball player, but they might have made my daughter a little ball player too. So it was really cool. Now, for them to kind of blow it up this quickly, I have had a few, Dad, can we root for another team type of thing this year so far. There's been a few times I've tried to turn off the game when my daughter has been no. So she's glutton for punishment, I think.
They'll learn quickly what it is to be a Marlins fan. You have the heartbreak, but hopefully you get the good times. And you're right, sustainable one-run games wasn't something that was going to happen. And this season, and you saw it the year prior, they lost just as many as they won in 23 and 22 under Mattingly. They lost the one-run games, and it seems to be creeping up back at them. But that's a cool that your family is getting into it with you. Now, what's the wife like? Is she into you watching it or not?
She don't mind. She's one of those that she likes to be at a sporting event live. She'd rather go to the game than watch the game. But baseball, luckily, is one of the sports that she can have on and not mind. She remembers that she grew up with her grandma having. She said her grandma would have the Mets in one room, the Yankees in another room, and her telenovela in another room. So she kind of grew up, seeing baseball on a little bit, being of Spanish descent. But so she likes to go. She's more of like, loves to go to any kind of sporting event live as opposed to watching it on TV.
And you know what? Tickets are going to be going down and down, down in price. So you could bring the whole family of 4 down here for the price of 1 coming up.
Yeah, I thought about, like I said, bringing them for 4th of July, but I'm sadly debating if the Marlins should get our money this year.
Well, the thing I always say is buy third party, because they already have the money. It's not an influx of new revenue. It's already spent revenue, and really the consumer at least gets something back, even though they're selling at half or 1/4 of the price. So hopefully you're able to do that. I'm not really going to even the games that I have season tickets for. I gave my Friday game away. I will be taking my mom to the stadium this Sunday for Mother's Day. It's a kind of tradition when they're down here to take her there. It's going to be her first time in the PNC Lounge. Have you guys sat down there yet?
No, I haven't been there yet. I've heard good things about it, though.
It's pretty cool. If you do get the chance, if it's like a special occasion for you and the wife and you want to do something nice, it's all you can drink, all you can eat. And I think tickets are down there for like $200 for games versus the Nationals and the bad teams. So it's something on a weekday you can maybe come down and do. So you're looking.
Nationals aren't going to like you talking about them when they're decent, actually, mediocre-ish.
They just don't have the traveling fan base to buy the seats up, so they're a little bit less. I'm not. You live in Central Florida, we'll say, not where, but you moved up to Central Florida. Has the Bally blackout affected you as far as baseball is concerned on Xfinity, or do you have a different?
I actually, yeah. So I use a YouTube TV, which doesn't have it, of course. So I have the Bally's app is how I got to basically pay to watch type of situation.
Now that's a true fan, ladies and gentlemen. Someone who's paying that $12.99 on the Bally app to watch the Miami Marlins. That's dedication right there, especially right now. Well, that's great stories.
Luckily, it's you can cancel it anytime.
Right? Then you get your full month. Maybe we'll see where they are if they have even 20 wins come the end of May. Oy vey. It's creeping up quicker than not. Thank you for telling me those stories about your family and other stories. Maybe there'll be another episode you could come back on and tell me all about your thoughts on really game experiences. But I want to move kind of into where the Marlins are now, because you and I, for those who follow us on Twitter, you've heard our spaces that we try to do at least once every few weeks. We really kind of gave the benefit of the doubt to Peter Bendix over the offseason. We were a little disappointed he didn't go after Trevor Bauer for pitching depth or any other pitchers to bring in, or Lorenzen or someone. But we gave them the benefit of the doubt, saying, you know what, maybe they're going to keep this team together to see how they're going to play. And they came out and they won. What my dogs are even talking about how bad they think they stink, but they came out and they've won 9 games and 27 losses. That's crazy. What are your thoughts there on how they've started?
I mean, blindsided. I mean, when all the pitching injuries happened pre-season, or even even leading up into the season, we knew it was going to be tough with the pitching, but Puck, I personally wasn't, saying that he was going to be this great starter. But if you looked at him in the preseason, Puck looked like he was going to, probably stay in the rotation maybe and be a surprise. And he looked like maybe he could be a starter again. We knew we were going to struggle, but this type of start, I mean, I don't think anybody saw this type of start. And people that say they did, I think they were kind of lying to themselves. I mean, this team did make the playoffs. Yes, there was unsustainable pieces to that, but we also were, hoping for a few things, a Tim Anderson bounce back and things like that obviously haven't worked. It's just literally everything has pretty much gone wrong. I told my kids that I was going to be talking to you tonight about the Marlins, and I said, okay, so let's think about some of the good things that are happening this year. And we couldn't come up with too much. DLC looks to me like he's proving to be a starter. I know that this is kind of a make or break year, I think, for the fans or for probably management or everybody on him. So good for him. But besides that, not too many other good things are happening right now for the Marlins to talk about, unfortunately.
It's rough. Let's talk about, let's continue what you just said. You and I discussed AJ Puck. You were, as you said, a little bit negative towards him being in the rotation, but with the spring he had, you thought he'd come in and at least be like a 4th or 5th starter type. The guy in his first inning just started walking people and giving up bombs right off the bat, and it never stopped. It was all his 5 starts. It was just, he maybe went 4 innings at most. It's insane. And then, you start off 9-24 and you make this huge move, one that we knew was going to happen, but not this early. And the Marlins trade Luis Arraez for 4 prospects: Dylan Head, Wusako, Jacob Marcy, and Nathan Martirado. Have you heard of any of these guys? And what are your thoughts right off the bat on the Luis Arraez trade?
Obviously, I definitely jumped on the kind of X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, bandwagon, and the initial, from a fan perspective, approach. The great job that Eli and the Fish on First boys do. I got a little banter with them. They come from the business side of it, which is totally fine. But I think there was a lot of fans that said, hey, first, can we come from a little bit of emotion? Can we talk about it from there? And then you can tell us about XYZ, Dylan Head, and the Usyk and the others. I would say I was upset about it. Obviously, as time goes, you get it where they're at. I mean, it just kind of solidifies what you thought, or what, where they're going, or what their plan is. And I mean, it is what it is, and we just kind of have to kind of roll with it now. So I'm less upset. I actually just, I know you all agree. I think it was just a terrible situation for, of all people, Xavier Edwards, because this would have been his moment. He could have been the starting second baseman if that foot infection never happened. So I was just actually saying that to my kids tonight. Like, what a shame. if there was going to be a silver lining out of it, I was hoping to get to see a lot of him. I know you too. But, we just had some bad luck with him and a crazy foot infection, apparently from before the season started, I believe. So he'll be back in a few weeks. But besides that, yeah, I definitely came with the mad, sad, angry, same old Marlins, or like frustration. And but I get it all. And as much as I still get it, I still think there is an aspect of that, though, that can be said of, we don't have to be that way. I know we do because of this is what's been dictated, but there is an option to do something different. And the one argument about why it had to happen no matter what is, we have to rebuild this farm system, and we have, that's a piece to get some farm system pieces back. But there is also another way. I feel that it doesn't need to be 100% of we have to do that. It could be a way of, no, there's pieces that we're going to keep no matter what. And we're going to, we could have extended him. And then even though we didn't, why couldn't we still have extended him? There's no rule that we couldn't, right? I mean, we still actually had him through next year. So, we could have still chosen to be different, but I get the route we're going. And now I think to lessen my anger, though, now I think we have to go full bore. I think we have to finish what we started, or Bendix needs to finish what he started now, because the sooner he does that, the sooner we can get to maybe a little bit more hope and joy and closer to a winning team again. The longer we delay that, it's just more pain for us, right? I mean, now that we started this, now let's, what that means, I know, is a move you're going to hate, like getting rid of Jazz and things like that. But I feel like I'll be more upset now if we don't go and let's just now full fire sale time. Now, getting talent in return. So I'm not saying fire sale in the sense of just giveaway, but everybody's open now, because we're not going to be in a position in even the very near future. So I think everybody's open. I guess the only one untouchable is Yuri, probably, according to, I would say, 99% of Marlins fans. He's the only untouchable. I know some say Sandy too, but I feel like Sandy's I feel like there's no situation where he stays, to be honest. I don't see how that happens, but I guess I could be wrong, because a lot of fans think him and Yuri are the two untouchables.
I'm with you on the Sandy line there. I've always said that him coming back, even if we won this year, would be difficult. Just looking at Peter Bendix's history with the Rays, they don't keep pitchers. And when the pitchers hit that expensive mark, they usually ship them out for prospects. And they did a good job of picking those prospects. So whatever spreadsheet that Bendix is working off of, hopefully it could do some magic here. Of course, this year without him, the Rays aren't doing that well. That Bendix, that is.
It's one last piece about the Sandy thing. What's weird is I always picture Sandy as a Dodger. And I know that would just be like Tyler Glasnow 2.0 trade, right? Like, we would look like, Glasnow just, I don't know. But I picture Sandy as a Dodger for some reason in my brain. He just looks like a Dodger horse out there. But, I mean, they get everybody, but it wouldn't surprise me.
He always pitches so bad when he goes into LA. It's crazy against them. Even in the All-Star game, well, he only pitched like one inning. He should have started. Of course, the bad luck that Clayton Kershaw somehow made the All-Star team that year, that he got the start because it's his home field, whatever, I guess.
Makes it a better story. It makes it a better story if he goes there and then succeeds.
But Sandy wins the Cy Young. He didn't start off or even have a great season in 23. I think he was a little tired, and it led into, with the pitch clock, could be his elbow injury, and now he's out. Regarding Yuri, he's out too. And if you look at timing, Yuri's not going to be back until, let's say, June at the earliest, 2025. It's not like Sandy, who got surgery in October, right after the season. This happened right before this season. So it's kind of like a Max Meyer injury where he could even miss all of 2024 and 25. So you kind of see what they're doing or what Bendix's plan is of doing. And he's really building for 26 and 27. You know me, I took it on Friday night. I was a little shocked. Saturday, I woke up cursing Bendix. But since I've kind of listened to his press conferences a couple times, except for that stupid line of one eye on the outside or one eye on the present, one eye on the future, I've kind of listened to everything he said since he got here. And he said the same thing. I'm building a sustainable franchise, whatever that means. And, you know, we weren't that good with Luis Arraez. So to get 4 players back in quality or quantity, I should say, 4 players back who could be quality players, it's not a bad haul. I'm just reading something I wrote earlier on Facebook. I'm trying to get the points out of it. A lot of people are picking on Bendix, saying this is his fault. Look at what Kim Ng did for this team, bringing them to the playoffs. You've already mentioned how we cannot statistically match or sustainably match last year's one-run game, especially with the pitchers that we have now. And we don't have a farm system. So I kind of blame Kim Ng, and I kind of blame a lot of blame to Derek Jeter. Neither drafted right, and I'm reviewing their trades. In all the moves that Kim made, except for bringing in Jesus Luzardo and Brian De La Cruz, not counting the Berger or Bell moves, because you had to get rid of a bad signing in Gene Segura to do that. You had to get rid of Garrett Cooper, who was a fan favorite, to do that. Other than, let's say, those 4 moves, she didn't bring anything back for the all-star or the deadline trades that she made. If you think about this, she traded Anthony Bass in 2022, who was having a great 2022, along with Zach Pop, and she brings back Jordan Groshans. He's off the team already. He didn't make the farm any better. She trades Miguel Rojas, who we both, I think you agree with me, needed to go. You get rid of Miguel Rojas, who is one of the premier defensive shortstops in the league at the time, and you get back Jacob Amaya. He's also no longer in this franchise. He was DFA'd and traded over, eventually to Houston, just made his major league debut. She trades J.J. Bleday, who wasn't ready for, for the majors at the time, but now he's having a successful year in Oakland. Yes, it's Oakland, but he's still playing the majority of Major League Baseball games, and Oakland is a winning team right now. They have a decent record. With those moves, she didn't bring back anything for the farm to grow. Going along with the draft, they didn't draft well. We don't know on Noble Meyer, but reality is since 2019, 4, I should say, major league players are on the Marlins. You have Anthony Maldonado from 19. You have Andrew Nardi from 19. You have Nick Fortes, who shouldn't be in the major leagues, from 2019. And you have Max Meyer, who was the first round pick in 19. Besides that, there's been no influx of major league talent in the system, and they've traded away guys like, adding to the list, Khalil Watson, who went with Gene Segura to Cleveland. I'm not saying he would have been great, but even worse, you drafted him first round and he wasn't great. This is long-winded. My question being, do you see why, or do you also blame Kim for these issues, or are you strictly placing your blame on Bendix for doing the fire sale?
I mean, I think there's both involved, probably more so on Kim, because this is what Bendix inherited, right? Just you made all the points on Kim's moves, which is still, because of what's happening now, there's this kind of backlash or uproar that she was so much better than Bendix and bring her back and this. And it's like, I mean, the Bendix thing is like, I mean, he's been here for 2 minutes, right? I mean, he's literally, he spent the offseason, instead of trying to improve the team, he was trying to improve his front office. I mean, how many signings? Like, that was his priority. I mean, the biggest issue with Bendix is his communication skills. I think you kind of mentioned one bad line, but just the fact that they don't tell us what's going on, right? If they would have just came out and been honest with this whole thing, I think not all, I'd say a good majority of the backlash wouldn't even be there if there wasn't so much hush hush. I mean, even me and you in the beginning of the summer, kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt at the beginning of the offseason, giving them the benefit of the doubt. You know, if they would have just said from the beginning, like, hey, Bendix would have said, the way I've got to rebuild is I have to blow this up. But my argument is making the playoffs. Don't you think making the playoffs just threw the monkey wrench in all of it? Like, Bendix came in, and you can't just say I have to blow it up. We just made the playoffs, so you can't say it. But he kind of didn't try to really improve it. So they do the company line of, well, we're going to get a full year of Berger, a full year of Bell, and we'll be improved that way, and all of that. And I might have bought into it, but you can't just say this is one or the other's fault at this point. I think it's a combo type of situation, but Kim can't be totally left off the hook. I mean, yes, last year was magical and great, but you mentioned all of those other points where she missed the mark before that, which gets us into, and Jeter, of course, yeah, I mean, he wasn't qualified. He was just a face. Some would say a pretty face, but he's just a face. But this is where we are. I mean, I'm kind of with you. Like, I'm a little bit more like, not trying to give Bendix the benefit of the doubt, but he has a plan. We know it now. I wish he would have just been a little bit more honest from the beginning, so we weren't so in the dark about it, and we would have felt a little bit just better overall with, as far as just the kind of, mood. So that's what, but we know now. So I think I've just come to accept it, but I would like, is there a way, do you ever feel, when everybody talks about a rebuild, let's not say fire sale, because I think he's trying to get value for, a fire sale. Most of the time, you might not even be trying to get the value necessarily. The rebuild, everybody always talks about a 4 or 5 year rebuild, but why can't you get a player that's, almost ready, major league ready? Why can't you get those type of talent, like next year type ready? So that way we bring them up, we let them have a whole year next year, let them be rookies and get their, jitters out. And then their sophomore year, in 2 years, we try to win again. Why does it have to be 4 or 5? If they could just say, we're going to just blow this up and we're going to try to be back in 2 years. I think that would be more acceptable to me as a fan personally.
And here's the thing. Again, listening to what he said, I don't think he wanted to blow it up this early. I think that he, just like you and I said, there isn't much room to bring people up. You had a healthy Xavier Edwards at the time ready to come up. You had a Dane Myers who had a good spring ready to come up, which, whatever, I don't know why Abisail Garcia is still on this team. That's a different discussion for us. But you didn't have much room to bring in on the 40-man roster of free agents. And at the time, Yuri wasn't down. Sandy, you were only supposed to miss Sandy. Lizardo wasn't injured. Eddie wasn't injured. Brax came in injured, but they were like, oh, it's only going to be a month for him. And then he had a setback. You really lost your whole starting rotation. But at the time, in spring training, we didn't know all that. We didn't know this was going to happen. He didn't. He may have had offers on the table, obviously, from San Diego for Luis Arraez, but he didn't act upon them. I think he said, you know what? Let's go into the season with the pitching healthy at the time, and let's see how they do. If we're competing, maybe I don't make moves yet. Maybe I hold off to the deadline. And if we're in competition, we'll see what we do to get better at that time. Instead, you have the plethora of injuries to our pitching. You still have that one offer on the table for Luis Arraez that really 4 players for one, you're paying for him because you're paying his salary. This wasn't a cheap move. This wasn't a move to get rid of your salary cap because they're still paying him. I truly think he went into this season one eye on the future, one eye on the present. I hate that line, and I'm going to keep repeating it. But he came in and said, you know what? They did make the playoffs. Let's keep them together as best we can. We're not going to sign Soler. We're not going to waste our money there. We're not going to bring in JD Martinez, but we're going to fill a hole at shortstop and give $5 million. They didn't go after the cheaper options. They went after what could be said the best option at the time. And they said, you know what? Let's try it. But then right before the season, injuries start to happen to the pitching staff. You get an offer from the Yankees, because we haven't even really talked that much about the Birdie and how that's affected the team. You had Birdie traded to the Yankees, and you get a guy who's 19 years old in, I think, something Cruz. I forget his first name, maybe Josh Cruz or something. You get Cruz, and he's an outfielder, and he's supposed to be a big bat. Now you get a move, another 19-year-old like Cruz, who might be ready in 2027 in head, and you get these 2 guys, and that's your future at outfield. But now you're like, okay, we don't have a first baseman down the road. They got a first baseman in this trade. I think that's Mortella is an outfielder / first baseman, more first base. Then you get another outfielder who could be good in Marcy. So I look at these moves, and you know what? He didn't want to do it, but the offer might really have been too good to pass up. Thoughts on that? Like, did he have a plan and then have to switch like that when they started off so bad? Couldn't that have been what happened?
It very well could. And, as much as I wanted them to be transparent on that, how would you have, as Peter Bendix said that to the fans, like, okay, I'm going to go in there and we're going to try, but if we start off and things don't go well, then I'm going to rebuild our farm system by trading our pieces. I mean, I don't think that would have went over very well either, right? I love the transparency, but I don't think that goes over well either. So maybe that's why it's not an easy thing to, be as vocal with the fans as maybe you'd want to be, because there's no good answer. And maybe if that is the case, yeah, we could be talking about something completely different if they started the season at 500 or better, right? I mean, it just started as bad as it could be. I mean, it wasn't just bad; it's historically our worst ever, right? So
Yep.
To go from it could have started bad or it could have started a little rough. Maybe we survived that. Like you said, it was that first month. Maybe we could just get through that first month somehow. And then, and he's like, okay, I'll give him the second month and we'll see. But that first month was just so historically bad that it pushed his hand. It pushed him. And, that's not what any fan wants to hear. It's not what I even want to believe, but it's probably the truth.
Rarely in baseball do you say your team is out of it in April. It's very rare for any team. You lose the season in April. But you were 16 games under 500 after April. That is also unheard of historically in baseball, especially in this period of baseball where it's a little bit more competitive. Even bad teams on paper, like Oakland was last year, they didn't finish that bad. I mean, even that Moneyball year where they went on a 20-game win streak, they weren't that bad. So you're in waters that have never been swam in before. Excuse the pun there with the fish. Bendix, a rookie president of baseball operations, has to take the reins, and he did. And he goes, we tried. Let me get something back. I know the backlash, but as fans, we go, you know what? you and I are good fans. You may or may not make it down. But we go, it's not going to change attendance either way because they're playing so bad. Trading Arraez is what, going to stop 100 more people from coming? There's no real revenue in that or a revenue loss in that. Bendix looks at it the same from a business standpoint. I'm not going to make or break this team with this trade because with him, we're 16 games under 500. If I keep him, if I extend him, we're not going to be better. And that's just going to handcuff me as he deteriorates as a player. Luis Arraez is great, but he means so much more for the Marlins than he does on a team like San Diego, where he's just another guy on that team. We would have had to overpay to keep him here, and I believe that, where he would sign with a competitor for less because he'll be competing every year on a roster like San Diego. And then not that team, but let's say it was the Dodgers he signed with or was traded to, they can eat later money by DFAing him if he deteriorates in the next 5 years. We wouldn't be able to do that. So I understand not extending. I kind of changed positions here, saying I understand the move. He was only here for a year. It's not like he was a Jeff Conine type Marlin. I'm going to be more upset when Jazz gets traded because he's been here for 4 years. I feel a connection with Jazz. Although Luis Arraez was always nice to me, I never felt that connection as like, that's going to be my guy. That's the future of the franchise. Honestly, the way DLC is playing, he could be the future of this franchise. He's on target to hit 33 home runs this year. That's Jorge Soler level. And he's only gotten better year over year, and he's still only 26 years old. Changing course here. Do you build this franchise around De La Cruz?
I mean, I've always been a huge fan of, I call him the notorious DLC. I think he's a piece. I don't know if he's a guy that could be the anchor of a franchise. I think he has to be a solid piece. I think he's the Robin. We need a Batman. But I think could definitely be a part of this future. I think he is already a part of this future. I think this is the season, like I said earlier, that's probably his make or break as far as with management, with fans, with everybody. And so far he's making it. So, I'm a big fan and I'll be rooting for him to stay. I hope that he is somebody that somehow we do keep. I do want to say, I know you were saying you didn't have a connection with the Rise, but I will say, I think that the hardest thing to do is hit that baseball, and I think that it's totally undervalued to watch him. As my son would say, that's just a patented Arraez single. That's just a patented. He'd come up, he's like, he's gonna hit a patented Arraez single to right, and he always did hit that single. But watching that was, I know the comparison, but very much like Tony Gwynn, which somebody that I watched a lot. So I think there's more value in a guy like Arraez than the numbers may say and things like that. I think he is a heart and soul type of guy. And I think he proved that he's part of a winner because he was part of our team last year when we were a winner. So I just want to give props to Arraez. Good luck out there. I'll miss him. I think I'm getting emotional about the Arraez trade all of a sudden. Where did that come from?
Where does tears coming from?
We'll miss you, Luce. I think it's just because, he was just part of, that such magical last year. And his hitting was just, to flirt with 400 is just, in this day and age of baseball with this strikeout or home run mentality, which I know it is what it is, but it is just kind of neat to see something like that. I just wanted to say.
It was really cool, and it's cool for the kids. It's going to turn them into baseball fans. But, a guy who's here a year, they're going to forget about at a young age, I think, in kids next year, and they'll see him in the other uniform. You could always, in this day and age, with MLB TV, with fantasy baseball, you'll always be able to follow these players anywhere they go. I always say I root for the uniform on the players than rather the player wearing the uniform. And I think that's kind of my mentality as a Marlins fan, good, bad, or ugly. So we only have about 5 minutes left here. We could go over. People usually on podcasts only listen for up to 45 minutes. So that's cool. It's weird, right? Statistics. Let's hope they work for the Marlins. Well, I'm going to name players. And I want you to say yes or no. Are they going to be on this team after the trade deadline? All right. You ready?
Ooh.
This is coming right at you. Josh Bell.
Shouldn't be, but I fear he has zero value at this point.
All right. Brian De La Cruz.
No, he better be staying.
Okay. Jazz Chisholm Jr.
Oh, Jazz, I hope we get a good haul for you. I hope you keep up your hot streak and we can get a good haul for you, but you got to go.
All right. Jake Berger.
Gosh, so Jake is the example why I was asking, can we win in 2 years? Because Berger is still here in 2 years making an impact. Berger is, I think, could be, will be Kim's crowning achievement. I think getting Berger was just a steal. He is a guy that I think people are underrate. Everybody hates him. His defense at third, I think it's fine. I think his defense at third is way better than his defense at first. I do not like him at first, to be honest. But he's a guy that's going to hit 30 home runs for you. He's just like that, going to be that guy that just does that. You plug him into the lineup, so I think he's got to be here. But there's no reason for him not to be. Even at this point, even if he is, not here in 5 years when we're supposed to be winners. I mean, it would have to be some kind of crazy, overwhelming package for us to get rid of him at this point, and I don't see anybody doing something like that.
I look at teams that are sustainably good. We're going to use that term. Not the Mets, not the Yankees who spend all the money, although the Mets are sustainably good. If you look at Houston, for example, they have a great third baseman. Maybe not this year; they're a little tailing off. But over their 6-year run, they've had a third baseman in Brigham. They've had a first baseman in Yuri Gurriel, and they've had outfielders who are really good. Those are where your bats should be. You have on our team now Jake Berger, who I believe, just like you, should not be playing first. Leave him at third. That's his position. You have a hole at first base because I don't see Josh Bell. If he doesn't get traded, he won't be here next year. They're not extending him. So you have an opening at first where this guy that they just brought in, Mark Torella, or we get our boy Troy Johnston up here to see what he could do. Or you
Troy.
Or you get Conine to learn a new position at first base and get him up here. So you need third base. We got that covered. You got DLC as a power bat, which he is in the outfield. I mean, he's at 7 home runs. Again, on target to hit 33 this year.
He hit one today. He's got 8.
Oh, wow. 8 already. And I didn't mark that down. 8. So, yeah, 30. He's on track. What's that, 33 or 34 now this season? He's really good. You have a second baseman in Xavier Edwards. I don't know about Brujan. Even though he had a little bit of a hitting streak there, I'm not sold on him. But I am sold on Xavier being your second baseman. So you have a hole at first. Your hole at shortstop still exists. You have a gaping hole, one that like you and I together could hold hands and jump into and fit like 1,000 of us in at catcher, because there's not a catcher in anywhere in our franchise at any level. I've watched Will Banfield. He could be good. He'll never be great. So you have like 3 gaping holes or big holes, but the outfield could be DLC, Cruz, and Head, and that will be a mixture of good trades by Kim, good trade by Bendix, and that will be our 2027 team, hopefully. I say extend Arraez. I mean, not Arraez. sorry, extend DLC now. He's making the minimum this year. Next year is his first year of arbitration, where he'll make like 20. If he's on this, he'll make more like 3 million. If you extend him now, put him on an average 5 million with a backloaded contract, you get him for 5 to 7 years. I think him and Berger together, they could be the Bash brothers in any center of a lineup. The guy's batting 2 and 3, but where they could be 4 and 5 hitters. Thoughts on where they're positioned?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think Berger's a great 5-hole type hitter. I don't even mind him as the third hitter, to be honest, as a 3 hitter either. And then DLC, he's one of those kind of plug and play in the lineup. I feel like he's got a little versatility, and he has batted in different spots in the lineup too. So I'm fine. And hopefully adding to them or making some, hopefully, like you said, some of these some of these trade picks work out, and then obviously we're going to make a few more trades, and who knows what players come from those that, like you said, maybe fill some of these other holes. The biggest magic trick of the year is the Marlins somehow getting worse at catcher than last year. It's literally, you thought impossible, but you're right. The hole couldn't get any bigger at catcher. So, we'll see. Your boy Jesrado, let's see what he brings back. Maybe a catcher.
I'm going to ask you to finish this, the most important question of this whole episode. Are you ready? The Marlins added a 4th rooster to the rooster race, but the rooster is a chicken and not a cock. What are your thoughts on that?
I am a little depressed that the rooster situation has gotten so much attention this year. It's sad that is the big to do. I've heard so much about these damn rooster and the situation with the rooster this year. So I'm just depressed that that's even a topic of conversation. Unfortunately, I'd love to be talking about how Nick Gordon's home run last night got us just ahead of the Braves or something like that. But it is what it is.
They tried the marketing on Arraez. He's no longer here. All they have left is Mia the Rooster. And the funny thing is, Mia the Rooster on Twitter, that's this guy. Just so you know, it's a new parody account. And now I just announced that to the world. So high five on that one. I thank you for joining. This episode was brought to you by InTheClutch.com, where you can buy MLBPA approved T-shirts. The money for these do not go to the Marlins owner or the owners of the other team. They go towards the MLBPA. So if you or your friend or anyone who is listening would like to go to InTheClutch.com, doesn't have to be Marlins apparel. Search your favorite team, city, and use code LMFX to save, I think it's 12% on your purchase. Josh, thank you for joining. What do you think of your first time here on the LMF podcast? Let's get louder.
Well, I just want to say thanks for inviting me. Great time. Anytime that you have a podcast, I just want to suggest for everybody not to skip it.
I like how you threw that in there. Skip's not going to be here much longer, so you definitely can't skip it. Thanks for joining. This has been an episode of the LMF podcast, the hashtag Let's Get Louder podcast with Josh Billy. You can find him at JBillGoat on Twitter. Again, that's JBillGoat on X, Twitter, whatever the hell its name is. You see the ticket if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching this or listening to it on any of your podcast platforms. Go check out, subscribe, like, comment, get me some more views, more follows. This way I can make some money from doing this. But until then, it's a pleasure being with you and doing this. Thanks, Josh. Have a great night. This has been an episode of the hashtag Let's Get Louder podcast.
Go Marlins.